Good afternoon, everybody. We are here. This is our Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee session as we continue to go through the FY22 operating budget. So today we have three very important items, and I'm sure Councilmember Fritza, there he is. We knew he was going to join us. So we're all here. And we're going to start with our first item, the Office of Intergovernmental Relations. And for that item, we have Mr. Camacho that has prepared a packet, and we expect to have, I believe, Ms. Melanie Wanger, Wanda Wells, who's Administrative Specialist at OIR, Jane Kira, Fiscal and Policy Analyst from OMB, Del Tibbetts, Special Assistant of the Office of the County Executive, and maybe, I know I have here on the list, Mr. Fletcher, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer. So with that, let me turn it over to Mr. Camacho to walk us through what is the recommendation from the executive, and then we can engage in a conversation. Mainly, I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the previous conversations that the council had in several retreats regarding some ways to enhance the communication liaison functions from OIR to the county council. And at some point we had discussed maybe having an actual position that would act as a liaison. And I understand that Ms. Michelson and Ms. Wenger have had conversations about how that can actually be absorbed within the current makeup of OIR. So just would like to hear a little bit of that update. But Mr. Camacho, if you can please walk us through the recommendation, and of course, then we'll open it up to conversations with colleagues.
Sure. Good afternoon, GO committee. Like Chairman Navarro said, today I will be walking through the OIR County Executive FY22 operating budget, recommended operating budget. So there are some changes because the county executive sent over a proposed amendment to the OIR budget yesterday. But I'll walk through kind of how it stands currently, and then I'll talk a little bit about the proposed amendment. So as the county executive sent his budget over on March 15th, the FY22 recommended budget for OIR is $1,150,332, which is a 1.2% increase from the FY21 budget, primarily increasing due to personnel costs. Operating costs are down or reduced by 5.1%. There's also a grant component to OIR's budget, and it has been this way for some years now. That grant component is in the form of a matching grant from the state for base realignment and closure activities, which funds contractual work with related state, federal, and local jurisdictions to monitor issues in that regards. So that grant amount is unchanged at $15,335. The recommended changes from the county executive will have no service impact or are not expected to have a service impact. So really the biggest change to the OIR's budget is a shift in a position. So this was discussed previously during the FY21 savings plan. So currently there are funds, $74,400 in funds for a contract, a professional services contract dealing with federal real estate within Montgomery County, so attracting and retaining federal real estate options in Montgomery County. So the county executive had previously recommended eliminating this contract. Through discussions, we discussed that this may have a service impact currently and in the long term. So the county executive came up with a recommendation to shift this contract from OIR to the business advancement team within the office of the county executive. And county executive staff is here to answer any questions regarding that shift, but council staff supports this proposed change as well as the recommended budget for OIR. So that's the gist of it. I'll hand it over to the committee chair.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. College. Yes, I think we had a conversation about this in the past. Let me see who from the executive would like to elaborate a little bit more on that, and then I'll entertain questions from my colleagues. So Ms. Wenger, is Mr. Fletcher?
I don't see Mr. Fletcher.
Yeah, I see him.
Oh, okay.
I'll go, Mrs. Wenger.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I'll take the first bite of the apple. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Navarro, for having me and the ability to answer some of these questions, I hope. So from our standpoint, we're glad to move the contract administration out of OIR to the county executive office. The prior contract administrator was the former special projects manager who retired in the end of last calendar year. So it was already being administered out of our office. The budget and the funding was just misplaced where it was in OIR, and for whatever reason and however it got there, the more logical place for it is for it to be in the county executive office where the staff is who is actually working on the contract. As you are well aware, we just hired a new special projects manager, and this is one of the contract administrative roles that she will be playing as it relates to making sure that we keep and continue this service that I believe that we all agree needs to happen for Montgomery County, and it just needs to be done correctly and located in the right location. So happy to answer any more questions, but thank you.
Okay, and also Ms. Wenger, can you update us on the conversation? I know that was outstanding from some of the retreats the council held regarding I guess, enhanced link for communication between OIR and council, especially as we track things like priorities and then just different things happening during the legislative session. I understand that at some point that the council had agreed to create a position, but it was noted that that perhaps could just be absorbed within your scope and your team. Can you just give a little bit of a
certainly.
update on that?
Yeah, I was not part of those retreats, so I got the information secondhand, but I believe that this might have been the conversation at a retreat that took place 2 years ago. And since that time, last year, if you recall, we worked to kind of strengthen the bond between the council and the Office of Intergovernmental Relations by the council dedicating a person on the council staff. It was Ms. Meehill last year to provide kind of direct liaison and to work more closely on position development out of the council and coordination, whereby the strongest hand always is to have the county, in lockstep on what their priorities are and what their positions are. That's usually the strongest hand. So, and Ms. Mayhill left. I believe she is a county attorney in Howard County. And so this year, the council identified two very, very able people to work with us to do the same type of thing. And I think what I would like to just spend a second on is to talk about how we do that. And also, as far as a point person, I think when Marlene and I talked about this initially, that point person would be me. And during this past session, I can tell you that I had numerous conversations as just a direct point of contact for council members, their chiefs of staff, and their legislative people as well. So we had, during this past session, I can probably spoke to every council member, or most every council member, 3 or 4 times, and their chiefs of staff or their legislative staff a number of times. But what we do now is when we look at the pieces of legislation that are being introduced outside of the priorities process, which I think that we're all fairly familiar with, and we do a lot of collaboration with the council on that. We look to see what we think we might be interested in, and more times than not, we send those to our council liaisons, who then send those pieces of legislation out to central staff who have responsibility for those areas. And then we get feedback through our workflow system called Capital Impact. And then also your staff has the ability to make recommendations about whether or not they think that the council would want to take a position on a piece of legislation or not. And lots of times those are discussed at our, weekly Monday council meetings. What we do is anytime we know that the county executive wants to take a position, we make sure that the council staff knows about that and then can make a recommendation to you all about whether or not you should weigh in or not. And we try to do the same thing when we know that the council would like to take a position. We try to make the same offer to the county executive. So we feel like the last couple of years, in our view, have worked fairly smoothly. And we hope that there's a fair amount of collaboration. We talk to council staff all the time. We talk to our liaisons all the time. We meet with them every Tuesday morning or every Wednesday morning at 10 during the session, and then we meet with them. We talk with them again as we work on the council package for those Monday meetings. So we feel like we have a pretty strong connection to the council, and we hope you do too. But we're always open to suggestions to strengthen our ability to represent both sides of the street and hopefully the county effectively at the state and federal levels.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Obviously, we had some conversations about this, as I noted during the retreats in 2019, and especially. And it's good to know that things seem to be working smoothly. I think I can speak for myself. I think there has been an improvement, obviously, with Ms. Mahil leaving. It's a little bit of a lag there, but we will obviously continue to communicate in case we need to enhance. Council colleagues. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much. And I do think it's, of course, the last couple of years, we've gone through the strangest of times for how we're doing the legislature and legislative work. And I think we adapted as quickly as we could. And Ms. Wenger, and I think that it's because of you and your staff and Mr. Fletcher involved with it too. Not to take away, but I believe that we're doing as good a job as we can possibly do on this. And of course, when things and I shouldn't say if, it's when things become more normal. They'll never be exactly normal anymore, but when they become more normal, I think we're going to have to evaluate as quickly as possible to see what we need to change and how we need to change it. I mean, once we go back to in-person discussions, we're going to have to figure that out. But I feel comfortable with the way things have progressed. As strange as they are, I feel comfortable how they progressed. So I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's a really important conversation. We've been talking a lot about how this process works. I think there have been a lot of improvements based on those conversations. I think there's more room for improvement, and I think we'll continue to, make those improvements. But I think we're heading in a positive direction. I appreciate all of the efforts that have gone in. I know it is a shared burden between your team, Ms. Wenger, and council staff and the executive branch. And it just speaks to the need for us to be collaborating and coordinating because we are a county government. And certainly we are strongest and most effective when we are speaking as a county government. It doesn't mean we will always speak as county government. We're all, we have 10 duly elected individuals who are responsible for representing the constituents who elect them. But certainly when it comes to the issues most important to the county as a whole, when we speak as one body and everybody understands what everybody else is doing, I think we're most effective, most powerful when we work closely with our partners in Annapolis, our delegation who have worked hard this session and beyond as well. So I think we're heading towards a positive direction, hope to continue the progress we've made. I think that the efforts that have taken place for the last couple of years have worked, and hope they'll continue to keep working even better.
All right. So with that, Mr. Camacho, can you summarize again the recommendation with the amendment, please?
Yeah, so the recommendation is the budget that the county executive has recommended for FY22 with a shift in funding of $74,400 from the Office of Intergovernmental Relations to the Business Advancement Team in the Office of the County Executive.
All right. Without objection, colleagues? I see nodding, so we will accept that recommendation. Thank you so much, Ms. Wenger and your team. Let them know that we appreciate all the work. Mr. Fletcher, thank you so much. I think this is a good action here, obviously, given all the things that we're going to have to be tracking and also working on as post-COVID-19 recovery. We have to be firing on all cylinders. So I'm glad that there are some shifts happening that will help us do that. Okay, so let's move on to item number 2. And that
Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care, everybody. That is our Public Elections Fund, NGA. And we have Mr. Mia, who has put a packet together for us. I believe that we should have Mr. Crow. Hello, it's good to see you. He's the manager, Department of Finance. Estela Boronat de Gomez, analyst, Office of Management and Budget, is who I have on my notes. I want to just, of course, recap that Montgomery County worked very hard, and this committee worked super hard to pass legislation that created the Public Elections Fund, and it's obviously was very well received during its first iteration. We did seek feedback from those who participated and also the community in general, and were able to make some amendments. And it is obvious that with the changes coming up in FY22, mainly 2 additional council seats, as well as some folks that are term limited leaving the council, such as myself, I think that this will be a very important tool, and it's going to, I think, figure prominently in this upcoming election. I see that the executive has recommended $3 million, including funds for contractors. And I do want to point to colleagues, of course, that one of the positions that was included in Bill 31-20 was to create an actual position, an actual liaison. And that's because we know that Mr. Crow did extraordinary, amazing work during that time, but I know it was absolutely overwhelming. And I think for folks who participated in the program, such as myself, at times it was a real challenge to be able to get clarifying questions, and just a whole plethora of issues. And so in this budget, I see that the executive has recommended money for contractors. I do believe that it is important for us to include funds to begin the process of hiring that position. There are examples of positions that, of course, are dedicated to work really hard during a particular cycle, like an election cycle. And then there could be other duties that position can also, take up. But the reality is that we can't really just think that a program such as this one, which has become so popular and so important, that we can just manage it with just having somebody dedicated and then some contractors. So I think there was an estimation by our council staff that it would require about $150,000 to hire to be able to get a position there. And I hope that as we have this conversation that we would support the recommendation of the executive, but also be able to include funds in the reconciliation list so that liaison would be hired. So I think there were options that were included for us, but I do think that it is important to get going on that issue. So with that, let me turn it over to Mr. Mia to see if I missed anything, and then we can maybe hear from Mr. Crow and then colleagues on this important issue.
Great. Thank you, and good afternoon, GEO Committee. As the chair mentioned, the CE has recommended $3 million, of which $250,000 is being recommended for staff support, and $2.75 million is for the public matching funds. I'll cover the staffing issue first. So the $250K is envisioned for 2 contractor positions that would begin July 1st, 2021. One would be a support position entry level that would assist Mr. Crow in managing the fund, including tracking disbursements, processing payments, validating data. The second position would be intended to support the public liaison function, including performing legal research, drafting documents, and similar type of work. It's a higher level position, comparable to grade 23. I know Mr. Crow is having conversations with the state to identify what appropriate contractor resources are available and can be found to fulfill those functions. The CE's recommendation does assume that the public liaison function would be an existing staff person, so no funds are included exclusively for the public liaison. So that's an option that the committee may consider. As you've noted, there's several options on the staffing issue. Option 1 would be to assume to go with the CE's recommendation and assume $250K for staff support. Option 2 would be to add additional funding on top of the $250,000 to provide dedicated funding for the public liaison function. And option 3 would be to essentially assume that instead of these public liaison support function, those funds can be used for the public liaison function. And so I will turn it over to Mr. Crow to go to explain further on the specific duties and why there's a need for contractors instead of full-time staff, and to provide any additional information on the public liaison that he may be aware of at this point.
Great, thank you. Mr. Crow.
Thanks, Madam Chair. As you all are or should be aware, a couple of years ago, the state passed a bill to pass the administrative function and the funding of the administration, a big portion of that from the state Board of Elections down to the county levels, since Howard County is coming on board with this program as well this year, and there was a lot greater participation than originally anticipated when we passed this in 2014. So I've been working with Mr. Demarinis on trying to figure out how we split the duties to adequately support him and his team and what they were doing in the last election cycle, and then seeing what we need to pick up to do to adequately ensure that everything's being vetted properly and that all the contributions are being entered in correctly and matched correctly. So I have another meeting with Jared in a couple weeks to delve into that a little bit more, and then hopefully we'll be able to determine exactly what kind of support we'll need, and then also kind of set the duties and responsibilities for this person starting in FY22. Now the admin expense support, we're not sure if we would need 2 full-time positions for the additional admin work. However, if there were additional funds remaining, hopefully that, as Mr. Mia said, that we could use those funds to procure a contractor to help out with some of the liaison role and doing some of the research or the fact-finding or outreach necessary to assist in that role. So that was part of our recommendation and what we put forth.
Okay. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Councilmember Katz.
Thank you. I should have waited to be called when I'm trying to do 2 things at once and couldn't do one thing at once. I guess my question is this going to stay in this department? Are you going to be administering it? There's been rumor that there's been other departments that have been looked into administering it, and so can you update anything or what we're going to actually be doing with it?
Are you talking about the liaison role or the administration of the program?
The liaison.
The liaison, my understanding is that it needs to be outside of the Department of Finance, since we're going to be administering this and dispersing the checks and validating all that information. That it would be best suited for this person, for the liaison role, to be outside of the Department of Finance. I know that the county executive and his team have been working on narrowing down that, and I think shortly they'll be announcing where that'll reside. So, but I don't believe it's intended. At least my understanding is that it wasn't intended to be a part of my team or in finance.
Would when that happens, and I understand why it should be outside of finance. When that happens, will we be looking at getting additional help for wherever it is going to land? How is that going to work?
That I hope that we can, like I said, with our contractor help, the liaison would, initially start as a gatekeeper who would accumulate the information or questions. Because, I mean, as you all are aware from the last election cycle, mine and Jared were pretty much who you would pick up and call and ask questions or send emails to. And we're hoping to have a point person that's not, myself. But that doesn't mean that the other person wouldn't come to me for questions or answers or a resource that we can procure with these additional administrative expense funds, or the county attorney's office if it's a legal interpretation. So I don't foresee the liaison being the end-all be-all and they're on an island by themselves. I think it would be more of a public-facing contact that could be reached out to for questions or any other information that's needed.
And I appreciate that, and you're right. I mean, your name and Mr. Maris was mentioned quite often, and all of us, and we kept saying that we were literally building the plane as we were flying it. Everybody wanted to do the right thing and get that answer, the day before you even thought of it. But we didn't always know exactly what to ask and how it was working. But my bottom line on this is that since it's going to be in another department, which I don't disagree with for the liaison part, that we need to make certain that the other department has the assistance that it needs in order to function efficiently. And I think that's very necessary. I don't think we're not going to be able to do that today, I guess, but we need to do that when that determination is made. Thank you, Madam Chair.
One quick clarification before I turn it over to Councilmember Friedson. So, Mr. Mee, I don't know who can answer this, but so am I correct in the fact that there are $250,000 requested that is mostly for contractual support? Is that correct?
That's correct. It'll be appropriated in the NDA, so it's not being allocated to a specific department, but it is meant to provide for contractual support.
Okay. And I know that, I had asked this question several times, but didn't receive the answer because I think I remember that the administration said that they would find somebody within the administration to sign as the liaison, but that has not occurred, right?
Yes, that's my
As of today, it has not been officially determined.
Okay. And Mr. Crow, did you just say that you didn't think that you would need two administrative positions, those $250,000, I think it's somewhere was described as maybe having like two sort of contractual people.
Correct. Because when we originally had created a fiscal impact statement for the state bill that passed 2 years ago, the county liaison role was still housed by myself. So that's why we put in those two positions originally. And I think it was recommended, or we had talked about it in last year's budget, but it did not make the cut. But this role was kind of envisioning the liaison role. So we had that envisioned prior to Bill 3120 passing and creating that position. So to, I guess, answer your question, the liaison role, part of that was supposed to be, picked up by one of these consultant positions or, assisting and helping answer a lot of the questions or doing the outreach.
Okay. because I mean, I just want to state for the record that I think it is going to be, I believe it's important for us to move forward with funding and creating a permanent liaison position. That's what the bill called for. And I was expecting that this was going to be resolved, of course, before the fact that right now, here we are. We're already in the cycle. So I feel strongly about that. And so if we're able to, take that $250,000, parse out however we're going to need to put in the NDA for contractual services, but then fund the actual full-time position so that can, the process can start right now. I don't think we should be kicking this down the road and down the road. We already have enough experience and feedback from the first cycle to know that this is quite complicated, very complex. And to just kind of farm it out to contractors, I just don't think that's the way that we should be doing things, especially when a bill already identified this as being important. So just something to think about as we're having this discussion. Councilmember Friedman.
Thank you. We talked a lot about these issues as we were going through the bill. We worked with the executive branch. I got to be honest, I'm a little bit confused as to how we are where we are. I think that the bill is fairly straightforward in terms of designating a member of the executive branch. That's not a contractor. In terms of this role, it could be an existing member of the executive branch. It didn't necessarily require that a new person be hired, but that was the discussion as part of that bill conversation. We're into this budget, and so it's hard to make budget decisions when we don't know what the plan is. So I'm not really sure what we're supposed to do with that. And we're into the cycle. Matching funds are eligible to start in a couple months, and there are those who have already begun their matching fund campaigns now. So the fact that we don't have a liaison identified is a bit of a challenge. I still also am not quite certain I fully understand the money for the contractors. At one point, it sounded like some of that money was envisioned to be used for this liaison, but it's also for administrative costs, and there's conversations that are ongoing with state in determining what administrative burdens will be on the county and what won't. So I think that the bill as it was passed should be followed. I think we can start with that. So I will agree with wholeheartedly with the comments Chair Navarro just made preceding me. How to figure that out, I would have thought that would have been up to the executive branch prior to this budget, but now that we are where we are, I think we've got to figure out how to do it. But could you explain, I'm still not certain I'm understanding, is the intention that the contractor funding in the NDA is intended to be used for this, and your thought was to use it for a contractor, and then we could decide not to use it for a contractor, use it for a full-time position? Or is the idea that you're going to identify somebody who currently works in county government, not in the Department of Finance, and that those contractor dollars will be used for something else? I'm not sure I'm totally clear.
So yes, the C's recommendation assumes that the $250,000 will be for contractors, not for the public liaison. So it assumes that the public liaison would be an existing staff person, and that person would be designated to serve in this role, and that person would have some support starting in FY22 from the contractor dollars. One option, an alternative, would be to either add funding or to guide the Department of Finance in perhaps not finance, but perhaps another department, would be to use those same dollars that the C has recommended to fund a public liaison position. That's option 3 on the packet. And so I think we need to have a further conversation with executive branch on what department is most suitable, if not the Department of Finance. And perhaps we could return next week, the next GO session, to have a stronger recommendation on that front. If the committee were to create a new position for 22, then there's some details that need to be worked out, I think.
Appreciate the responses.
Yeah, So I think we, if in a week we could get an answer, because here's the problem. If we were to appropriate money for a position, by the time it goes through HR, I don't know if that's going to take 3 or 4 months. I have no idea. The fact that a position has not been identified yet, and of course, there are people who have qualified who have been writing to us and saying, the clock is ticking. When are we going to know? And again, here we are, and we don't have a definite answer. I see Mr. Medellino has joined. Maybe he has news for us. But I think without having any certainty, it's going to be difficult for the committee to make a final, determination. So, I don't know, is a week going to be enough, Mr. Medellino, maybe for us to get a better understanding of that?
Sure, and I'll apologize for I was joining for the next item, but I realized in hearing this conversation, you may have wanted an answer from me. Hopefully, I'm not going to contradict anything that has been said before, but we've been talking about designating someone in the Office of Consumer Protection to be the liaison, because there's someone who needs to be the liaison to answer questions, and then there's the function of certifying the donations and doing that work, which we intend to continue in finance, all trying to be very sensitive to the idea of the county executive has signaled his intention to use this fund. And so trying to make sure there are firewalls that did not exist 4 years ago, because when the fund was when the prior election happened, the previous, county executive Leggett was not running for re-election. So you didn't have the same dynamic that we're trying to be exceedingly cautious about, which I'm sure all of the council members can understand about that. So part of our conversation about bringing a liaison on full time is what would that person do in like the first 2 years following the next election, the next county election, since that position isn't, there's no use for the fund during the presidential election cycle. So can we pull together a position that can handle the liaison responsibility and potentially something else, so it can be a busy full-time position? And that's why our current thinking was consumer protection was a potential valuable place for it to be, because of their reputation within the community for being a watchdog.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because it's the first time that at least this committee is hearing about it, even though there was this bill, and even though the cycle basically has already begun and people have already qualified. And I can understand why candidates are very nervous, because as I said earlier, the experience with the last cycle, Mr. Crow was like a hero, because he literally had to do all of this alone. We had a lot of lessons learned, which we also elicited feedback from a lot of folks, and the feedback was very robust. And so I had assumed that obviously by now all of this would have been worked out, because the moment is now, like we're there. And we have examples of other positions like the grants manager and things like that, where they're very busy, during a particular cycle and then not so much. And so the idea is that, of course, there are other things that they are identified that they can do. So again, I'm just a little bit at odds here, because this is such an important program, and confidence in the program is key to its success. And so that's why we went through the trouble of passing another bill to enhance and address all those issues. This is what the council did, and we still haven't gotten like a full affirmation of how it's going to be handled going forward. I appreciate what you've said, but you did say that you're still trying to figure some things out, and that gives me a little bit of heartburn, because it's not definite. Anyway, Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Let me say it very clearly. If it's going to go to the Office of Consumer Protection, then the funds need to go to the Office of Consumer Protections, which we never seem to give enough money to. They do wonderful, wonderful work, and it's always. And next year we're going to get you more. We're going to get you some additional funding here, and we never have it. We don't do it, and that's not fair. I don't disagree that this could be in consumer protection, but if it's going to be, then we need to give them the resources to be successful with it. So I'm not opposed if it does take a week, that if we could get an answer within a week. But Madam Chair, to your earlier point, I believe that we need to start the hiring process. We probably needed to start the hiring process months ago, and we certainly cannot let this drag on. And if we could get someone in a permanent position, that would be the best for all of us. But we need to do something. We need to do something quickly, and we need to get an answer on all these questions as quickly as we can. So, I'm fine with discussing it next week or whatever. I'm also fine to say that I agree with option 2, and that I think that that's a way to go, but I'd like all these answers with it. Thank you.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and reschedule this for next week so we can get clarity, and if indeed the path forward from the executive is to then assign somebody from the Office of Consumer Protection, I agree. I think that money should go directly there. Also, of course, this is quite technical, and so whoever is going to be in that position needs to get up to speed very quickly, understanding the various details of this program and the law, and so that has to happen like ASAP, and then we can make a decision accordingly. But I think what I'm hearing from my colleagues is that we want a definite, position that we can identify and fund, and then hopefully, enhance that with some of the contractor funds that are going to be necessary for some of the other sort of technical things. But we know that the Office of Consumer Protection, it's spread quite thin. So I do agree that I would not be comfortable on just assigning this to them without the appropriate funds, because as it is, they do extraordinary work, but we know that they don't have the necessary capacity to do what they're doing at this time.
To be clear, we're talking about a liaison position in consumer protection. Finance will still administer the whole program, reviewing the donations, making the contributions, the fund, and we are in the process of reviewing a potential budget amendment that would add the funding for the liaison position in consumer protection, so that the amount of money that you still have to administer the program by finance remains in the NDA.
Okay, so if we could get all of that squared out, Mr. Mia, if you can work with the administration to do that, because the way it kind of worked last time, Mr. Crow was basically the liaison, and then there were some people in finance who also worked on issues specifically directed to the money. But I just want to be sure that we're clear that the liaison, that is heavy duty work.
Yes.
Especially with a cycle where we're going to have 2 additional council seats plus term limited council members, which means there's going to be a lot more interest. And so that liaison position has to be somebody that is well versed and that is going to be able to troubleshoot, that is going to be able to do that. The financial piece and that is a different kind of capacity, right? It's more technical, et cetera. And so that has to mesh, no doubt. But I think what was identified overwhelmingly by the feedback, and I add my opinion to that, is that we do need that liaison to answer questions, to troubleshoot, to do all of those things as well. So how about if we do come back then, and at that time, I think I would like to also be able to have whatever budget amendment is going to be sent, et cetera, because now we may have to do that through this, this NDA. So let's do that. Because I'm afraid to, yeah, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the path forward that you've just said. Just a couple complementary requests. One, can we get an understanding of what the $250,000 for the contractors exactly is going to be spent on? Because I think that's would be helpful as part of this conversation. Helping finance to administer is a fairly broad budget category. So it would be helpful to just have an understanding of what that process is going to look like, who's going to do it, what kind of firm. Are you bringing on an accounting firm? Is it an hourly structure? How many hours are you expecting? I mean, we really have very few details up to this point of what that looks like as we weigh whether or not we could repurpose money or whether we need to find new money. And so I think that would be helpful. And then the last piece, and Chair Navarro noted this, this is, I guess, a budget amendment that's coming over. There's been a number of budget amendments already. Is this the final budget amendment, or are there other budget amendments that we should be expecting? Just hard to keep up with the changes. I just wanted to check to see if we thought this might be the final budget amendment sent over before we take up the budget.
I would love to be able to give you an answer of yes to that, but as you know from our state work, there are budget amendments that come on the final day. So I would love for it to be the last one. I don't know, depending upon what else pops up. And quite frankly, it might be very modest. As we are having that conversation, the conversation you just said about the 250, that's been part of the dialogue we've been having.
Okay, it's just helpful as we take up the budget to know the budget that we're taking up, and every time there are amendments to it, it changes the available funds, the need for offsetting cuts, and various other things. So it is challenging. I mean, I understand state aid and other things come in, and the timing is tough in the beginning. Some of that is to be expected. This bill was approved many months ago. The election timing hasn't changed. It's hard to really understand the necessity for a budget amendment on this, but hopefully we can get the information and take it up at the appropriate time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so we'll get back to this item. So now we're going to move on to item number 3, and this is payments to municipalities and DA. I believe Mr. Smith, who prepared the packet, is here. We do have seen everybody popping up on the screen here. We have Mrs. Suzanne Ludlow. Also, of course, Mr. Amadalino, who is here as well for this item, Mr. Waters, as well as I believe Ms. Ashton, who is here for this item as well, and Ms. Bernadette Gomez as well. So welcome, everyone. Let me just, first of all, acknowledge and thanks all of our municipal partners for our many years of partnership working on this particular issue. Ms. Ludlow and I, who know each other since our children were like in pre-K, go way back and know that this has been an important item that every year we do our best to try to figure out how we can come to an agreement. I also want to acknowledge Councilmember Katz, who, came to us being sort of on the other side of the issue to then come here and then lead, the council through many different iterations so that we could get to a point where we could put all of this sort of to bed, if you will, and move on. And I want to thank also the administration for engaging this year and putting forth as well a particular proposed a resolution changing the eligible services and formulas for the county's property tax duplication payments. And what I will say is that, this time around, I think that we're super close. I do believe, and I've heard, loud and clear, just as my colleagues have heard loud and clear, that our municipality partners believe that, yes, we are very close, but there's a little bit more work to do. And the good news is that we can, make some decisions in our budget and then take a little bit more time for the municipalities and the executive to go back and finish up a few areas of importance in order to be ready, fully ready, I think, in FY23 to have everybody, on the same page and on board. And And so what I have indicated via memo, and I think it's in the packet, and I know our partners in the municipalities have seen this, and I believe my colleagues as well, it's just a proposal that, as I said earlier, that we do approve, the executive's recommended appropriation in his FY22 budget proposal, which does represent an increase of $824,632 to our municipal partners, and that was a total of $9,122,411. I also propose that we do, add to category 2, and this would be, of course, through our reconciliation process, the sum of $5 million, which is basically roughly the delta, and of course do that in 3 tranches, because we do know that we're trying to kind of figure out our way through this budget process. I included, and of course we're open to modifying this, but I just proposed 3 tranches, one of $2 million, another one of $1.5 million, and another one of $1.5 million respectively. And again, this represents a difference between the county executive's proposal and the estimated amount that municipalities are stating that they are owed. And then request that the county executive work with our representatives, municipalities, to reach agreement on the appropriate formulas for property tax application reimbursements, which may or may not include any phase-in approach, that can be up for decision as proposed by the county executive this year. Also, to work on the appropriate formulas for reimbursements related to the county's and certain municipalities' police services. And then finally, that we actually include language in our budget resolution that, captures this intent. And Mr. Smith has drafted some language and literally is just, says what the intent of the council is, that, by October 1st of 2021, in collaboration with municipalities, that the county would codify a consistent process and method to update the property tax application formulas to allow payments for shared services. The county council delegates this effort, of course, to the county executive or his delegate to work with municipalities and provide revised property tax application formulas and any county code amendments to allow for payments of shared services related to police services. And this way, as I said, I think that we have a path forward that allows for, again, appropriate time outside of the budget to finalize this agreement and be ready for FY23. And so, again, I really want to thank everyone who's, worked so very hard on these issues. Before we get into the fuller conversation that Mr. Smith, the packet that he has prepared, I do want to hear from our partners, and then Mr. CAO Medellino, and then turn to Councilmember Katz for his observations, and also, from his perspective where we are, get into the conversation of the packet, and then if there are any other additional questions, that we can do so. So with that, let's see, who would like to speak on behalf of our municipality partners? Ms. Ashton, yes. And then also Ms. Ludlow, who is here. Welcome.
Good afternoon. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all today. My name is Monique Ashton, and I am the incoming president of the Montgomery County chapter of the Maryland Municipal League. For those who are listening, we represent 21 municipalities in the great county of Montgomery County. And I'm also a council member for the city of Rockville. Today, I'll be speaking in my role as incoming president of the chapter of MML. I wanted to just start out by saying I really appreciate all that you have just said. And I also agree that we are so close. I know that many of you have worked on this for many years, and I really feel like this is going to happen, that there's a lot of positive momentum here. Everyone wants to do the right thing. So thank you, Chairwoman Navarro, for your work and for the opportunity to be proactive.
Yep. Did we lose Ms. Ashton? Councilmember Ashton? Oh, Councilmember?
And
I've lost her.
Does seem like she froze here. Is she back?
There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you. So I hope you heard that. I wanted to also thank the county executive, as well as thank you to Councilmember Katz, who has been in our shoes and knows what we're going through. Thank you for your leadership, and Councilmember Friedson. We really appreciate that you are dedicated to also establishing a fair process for municipalities. I want to share that we have really spent a lot of time on this, and there's unanimous support for 3 main points. And just quickly, it's fully fund, codify, and let's develop the process for shared services. As you mentioned, Chairwoman Navarro, we do agree with approving the county executive increase of the $824,632 for FY22 budget, and we would like to see that added budget of $5,880,903. That would help us to get to the full amounts for transportation for police, crossing guard, and some park services. So that total would be the $14,203,314. But really important for us, so that we can move beyond this discussion of debate, is to codify the process, and we're hopeful that in collaboration with municipalities, we can get that done by October 1, 2021. And then thirdly, just really, continuing our collaborative process to look at FY 2023, developing a revised formula for those shared services for police and park maintenance. We're hopeful that can occur, and we can have those discussions by August 2021. So I wanted to also just introduce a colleague of mine who has worked on this and I think has dedicated her career to this topic. Suzanne Ludlow, she's from Tacoma Park, and she's here to provide a few additional details as well as answer any questions of yours. But thank you for your time. And I, just as incoming president, just want to say that we want to have strong collaborations with you and continued communication, not only on this topic, but going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Councilmember. All right, Ms. Ludlow.
Thank you. So I've been working on this subject since 1998, so it's been a while. But I've also seen the progress, and we really have made remarkable progress. Even under County Executive Leggett, we did finalize transportation funding formulas that made sense. There were discussions that shared services should be an allowable rebate option, primarily for police services for the 3 municipalities that have shared police services, but there may be a couple other shared services. So we wouldn't want to limit it just to policing. It would be a discussion with the county on which elements. Policing is the most important one, I think, and the one that that we've spoken the most about. The additional $5 million I do recognize is real money. But it's also money that we don't have for us, that our residents have paid, and that are for services that we're spending to provide, the road services, in Tacoma Park's case, the policing services, and several other elements. One of the things that we've done as municipalities in these negotiations is we've cut down the number of categories for rebate. So there used to be about 7 or 8 categories. We've got it to 4. So we've made some compromises there. As Councilmember Ashton mentioned, we have unanimity in the MML chapter, which isn't necessarily something that we always get. So, and that especially when it's saying that some of the municipalities had to give something up. And so I really appreciate that we're all trying to work together constructively. The additional $5 million does not represent any back pay. For 10 years, we've been frozen. And so the county has taken those funds and not paid them back. So it is something to acknowledge that, we're just trying to get a fair payment at this point for this coming year. And we really do appreciate the county executive staff in agreeing to work with us on the police service negotiations, and for moving away from some of the language of the Leggett administration about grants and things to municipalities. These are payments that are rebates, and so we're looking forward to the working relationship. Really appreciate Councilmember Katz and I have had a lot of time on this subject, and appreciate the many years of discussions. this is the time to get it right, and we're so close. So I appreciate your attention to this. I appreciate everybody's work on this, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there's some that come up, but I'm also happy to work on this offline to help get the details right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ludlow, for all your years of service to this issue in particular. All right, Mr. Madaleno, and then we'll turn it over to Councilmember Katz, the expert. Oh, you're muted, Mr. Madaleno.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, and our colleagues from the MML chapter. We've worked hard to move this ball forward. The county executive would love to get a resolution in place. The big R, little r resolutions in place to get this done and over the finish line. You know, I would mention, like with so many of these decisions around the budget, not just this one, you know, the county executive was making decisions in January, in February, when we were still trying to figure out exactly what the situation was going to be from a fiscal standpoint. So some hard decisions were made about how to phase this in. Sorry about confusion that may have left the MML chapter members caught off guard by what was in the budget compared to what the executive was thinking. The resolution that we've submitted, I think, does provide the starting point for the negotiation. And the county executive has made it very clear to all of us that he wants this to be resolved. He was very pleased to receive your letter, Councilmember Navarro, and his thinking is very much in line with that. And we're also, you know, very interested in seeing what we can do in FY22 and then potentially what that leaves us moving forward and resolving the police issue. You know, I think many of us had hoped that we would get that all done during the prior year, and while it's slipping my mind, something got in the way, and we were unable to make that progress. But we're back to where we are, where we were last year, and ready to move this forward and finally finish the Ludlow formula, so that we can give her a fond farewell as she departs to Como Park. And I just want to give a shout out to former Poolesville council member Jerry Klobakowski, if I even said his last name correctly, for his many years of advocacy on this. You know, the voters of Poolesville did not see fit to keep him around, but his leadership on this was obviously very much appreciated by everyone in this meeting.
Thank you so much, Mr. Madaleno. Thank you so much for all your work on this issue as well. Though, you know, you're kind of new in this role, but really appreciate the fact that you have been hands-on, and that I think has made a big difference. Well, Councilmember Katz, who is the expert, and will get a medal once this is all worked out.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. You're more than kind on this. There's many experts on this topic, and I think first of all, let me start by congratulating Councilmember Ashton. I was president of the MML chapter as well as the state, but I was president of the MML chapter for several years, and I can tell you it's gratifying work. You make friends. I always used to joke to everybody that if they ever had a flat tire someplace, they should call me because I have a friend there. You know, so you have friends across the county and across the state, and it really is wonderful work. And to Ms. Ludlow, you know, this has been dragging on forever, I tell you, forever and ever. And I always have to mention my good friend Fred Felton, who's been dead 11 years. And he worked on it one of the times when I was president of the chapter. And we always got a little closer, and then things fell apart, and we got a little closer. And then, you know, this is the first time that we had a pandemic stop us. I mean, so, but it's just been time and time again that we've never been this close, but we've been close before. This is the time to put this to bed. I have to tell you, it's probably the longest bedtime story in the history of Earth, but this is the time to do it. We are almost there. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, we are there. And And I also want to very publicly thank Mr. Manolino and County Executive Elridge. They came last year as close as we've gotten for many years. And of course, the pandemic decided that it would be visiting us. And so we couldn't do it. We didn't do it. But they deserve a lot of thanks. And I can tell you that Mark Elrich, when he was on the municipal side, was certainly where we all are as well. He wanted to get this solved and felt that the county was not being fair. This is not only about tax duplication. This is about fairness for payment. And if somebody does the work, they deserve to be paid for it. And that's not a difficult concept. It's the truth. So the only thing, and Madam Chair, I'm going to move your suggestion, but the only suggestion that I would like to make is that we get an update, our committee get an update, not that we have to meet in committee, but that our committee get an update from both the county executive side as well as the municipal side every 2 weeks, so that we know doggone well that this is progressing, that this is going to be ending. Because what has happened in the past is that we say, look, we'd love to be able to solve this, but we're right in the middle of budget. So I promise next year we're going to solve it. Well, something else, a new issue pops up and we don't get it done. So I would like to suggest that every 2 weeks that we get an update, not that you're going to solve it in 2 weeks, it'd be lovely if you did, but every 2 weeks we get an update on where we are, that people are communicating, and that we get this done. So with that, Madam Chair, I move your memo as suggested, with that one proviso that it be every 2 weeks.
I think Councilmember Friedson, he raised his hand. Are you seconding? Is that a second, Councilmember Friedson? Yes.
I will second it. And I'll just, one quick comment. Appreciate all the work that has occurred. There's been a tremendous amount of effort that has gone into this over decades. Appreciate that, certainly. Appreciate your leadership, Madam Chair, on putting forward your memo. I just will say we've got to communicate better. This has been a case study in that some of the challenges across government and within government, that we could communicate a lot better to understand where we are on things. I think it causes a lot of confusion and disruption. We're all responsible for important services for our residents. We all owe it to our residents to understand where we are and what we're doing and how we are investing taxpayer dollars. And I understand it's in a pandemic, and I understand there are a lot of other challenges going on, but hopefully this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship amongst all of us, to paraphrase a term, and that we can communicate better. I think Councilmember Katz's suggestion speaks to that. I think the attempt is to make sure that we're hearing from all sides and talking to all sides. And I just wanted to double down on that concept and just make sure that we're navigating through this issue in a way that's coordinated, collaborative, and transparent, and then we can finally move this process forward, put it to bed, and continue the important work of government at every level.
Thank you. So we do have a motion and a second, and so without objection, we will adopt that proposal. I also want to, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that I know that our partners did send a letter, and it had a suggestion. It was that we just amend the county executive's resolution with this language. But I know that in conversations with council staff, it was noted that it's best to do that via the budget resolution language. And so that is why we've decided to do that instead. And if you guys hear any weird noises, it's because my daughters, my adult daughters who are here with me, each of them has a dog. And one of them bought this very cute little weird toy that is activated with batteries and moves around and whines a little bit. And of course, they have to be here with me right now. So just to break the ice a little bit. If you hear something like that, don't panic. It's a weird toy. Okay, any outstanding issues? Councilor Katz.
I just, and very quickly, but I wanted to very publicly thank you, Madam Chair, because it was your memo, though we all, talked about it in general terms, but it was your memo that got us to the spot we are right now. And I can tell you that that's greatly appreciated. I know for me personally, but I believe that I can put on my municipal hat for a couple seconds here and say from the municipal side as well. You got us to the spot where we need to be, and hopefully, Mr. Madaleno, and I know that you're going to work with us, work with the municipalities, but I hopefully this will get us to the day. I used to always jokingly say, if we saw this, I don't know what we'd ever talk about to our friends from the municipalities. We'll find something else to talk about. I swear we will. So hopefully this will get us to the day where we can all be proud. And I did want to correct one thing. We have been friends all along the way. This isn't the beginning of a friendship. This is a continuation of a friendship and friends treating friends the way they should be treated. So thank you very much.
Touche.
I appreciate that. It's, as I said, I don't want to pass the baton to the next GO chair in 2022 without, having this resolved. So it's just a little gift there, hopefully, that we can all celebrate. But with that,
we're going to make a rocking chair for Ms. Ludlow that is made out of all the various iterations of the municipal tax duplication. What? No.
I think Ms. Ludlow is definitely too young to want to sit in a rocking chair for a little while. Maybe, we'll think of something else to memorialize this.
And I think you were very lucky, Mr. Madaleno, that Ms. Ludlow was on mute at that moment.
That's correct.
I said it with love. I said it with love.
Of course you did. Anything else that we needed to address?
No. I just wanted to say thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you. No, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's been a team effort for sure. So
this is a fun
we're here.
Fun.
Yes. All right, Mr. Smith.
No, the committee has made their recommendation loud and clear. The only note I might add is, given Mr. Katz's comment, it sounded like a friendly amendment. Maybe we'll add a small sentence to the provision that you suggested, Ms. Navarro, that will talk about the not bi-weekly, every 2-week update from both MML and the executive. And
that would be great. And I'm assuming that can be in writing, correct? That Councilmember Katz, is that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, a written update. Okay, awesome. All right. So I think with that, we've done our work. So we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Warning means a tornado has been spotted in your area. Keep an eye out for